On the edge of the abyss that leads to the underworld, Ulysses keeps the advancing specters at a distance. He has seen the shadow of his mother and spoken to the blind prophet of Apollo, Tiresias, who showed him the route to follow back to his homeland of Ithaca. Then all of a sudden, the gathered souls flee in panic. Ulysses knows that no mortal is permitted to enter the kingdom of the dead. Circe, the enchantress who sent him here, told him this many times. But an invisible force seems to push him towards the abyss down which the dead have vanished. A force that has always driven him, his curiosity. Ulysses signals to his companions to wait for him. Then he descends, slowly. Through the moldy darkness, towards the bottom of the terrifying abyss. Suddenly, a man appears before him. He instantly recognizes him. Agamemnon, the one they called the King of Kings. Or rather, the shade of Agamemnon of Mycenae, the great warrior who laid Troy to ruins. Ulysses fought aside him for almost 10 years. Since then, Agamemnon had died. But how? Ulysses wants to know by which cruel death Agamemnon was tamed. He can't help feeling sorry for the old king, this pillager of cities, this slayer of innocence. So Agamemnon begins telling Ulysses about his death, inside his own home, on the night of his homecoming. About how his wife, Clytemnestra, who had taken his own cousin Aegisthus as her lover, had had the king and all his companions murdered. He also tells Ulysses how he was recently avenged by his son, Orestes. Orestes, the son of Agamemnon, is today the same age as Telemachus, the son of Ulysses. An age to avenge one's father. And Orestes had killed the ill-fated couple, his own mother, Clytemnestra, and her lover, Aegisthus. But Zeus refused to pardon such a crime and unleashed the Erinyes on Orestes, the fearsome Furies, with the heads of dogs and hair of snakes, who unrelentingly pursue their prey, barking and armed with brass-studded scourges, until their demented victim dies in torment. Agamemnon tells Ulysses to beware. When he finally makes it back to Ithaca, he must not show himself. He must arrive in disguise, or else he'll meet the same fate as the King of Kings. But Agamemnon isn't alone. Another shade appears before Ulysses, that of Ajax. Then, those of the three famous captains who had fought before the walls of Troy. Antilochus, Patroclus, and Achilles. Achilles, the most glorious of warriors ever known to the world. Achilles, whose anger provoked the fall of Troy. Achilles, whose name and cruelty inspired fear in the dead themselves. But the force and vigor that once drove the great warrior have vanished. He whom the Greeks honor as a god is no more than a specter addressing Ulysses like a madman. How dare you, a living soul, enter the prison of Hades, the abode of the dead deprived of all? Achilles and Ulysses once again facing off. Ulysses wants to reassure his old companion. On earth, no one has forgotten his courage, and songs of his feats will be sung for eternity. His name will be forever etched into the memories of men. And even here, in the underworld, he will continue to inspire fear and respect. He should regret nothing, not even life, because among all men, Achilles is and forever will be the most famous. Achilles casts aside Ulysses' praises. There's no point in trying to sweeten death. What does Ulysses know of death? Now he's in the world of Hades. Achilles constantly bears the terrible weight of the choice he had to make. To live a long, peaceful life and gradually be forgotten by all, or to die young having conquered fame for eternity. And he chose to die as a young man in order to open up the gates to fame. If only he had known. Fame has meaning only in the light of day. Today, Achilles would prefer to be up on earth, living a good life, that of a peasant, that of a servant, even that of a slave. Anything as long as he's alive with his people, rather than reigning here among the dead without substance. Achilles shows Ulysses the shapes surrounding them. They are the glorious dead of the past. Those who perished in the Trojan War, but also the great kings of old, like Minos, king of Crete. Orion, said to be the most handsome man to have ever lived. Sisyphus, prey to his eternal torments. Oedipus, the king turned beggar, who blinded himself as punishment for his involuntary crimes. And so many others. Sad and immobile, all these dead souls groan as they dwell on their woes. No, Achilles wishes on no man this fame which, for sure, lives on in the memory but has plunged him into nothingness without ever having experienced the joys of being loved. Ulysses reluctantly pulls himself away from this nevertheless fascinating spectacle. It's time to return to his ship, before Persephone or Hades unleash some hellish creature on him to drag him down into the depths of oblivion. The decks of the ships fall into complete silence. Ulysses' crewmen will never forget what they have just experienced. The wails and rattling chains still ring in their ears. Ulysses' thoughts are still with Achilles, Agamemnon, Ajax, Patroclus, and all those valiant warriors reduced to shades, languishing for eternity. So this is how the gods reward great feats, bravery, and honor? By shutting them away in a prison of darkness? The gods are clearly unjust. Eurylochus snaps Ulysses out of his thoughts. The wind has dropped. The sea is flat beneath a blazing sun. The fleet is immobile, stuck, on the very spot, they say, where the sirens live. The sirens, Tiresias had warned Ulysses that to escape from them, he would have to come up with new tricks. All sailors know the legend of the Sirens. It's said their song is the most enchanting one will ever hear, with a sound so pure, so perfect, and so divine that no man can resist it. The Sirens appear sometimes as bird women, sometimes as fish women. Their bust is that of the most beautiful of goddesses and surmounts a single shimmering fin, or is otherwise equipped with brilliantly colored wings which enable them to fly. Their songs inspire love and desire in those who hear them, and he who does immediately dives into the sea to join them. It's only then that these young beauties show their true faces. They metamorphose into hideous, terrifying creatures with razor-sharp fangs and flaming eyes. They drag their prey down to the seabed and devour it. In the depths of the abyss stands the palace of these fairy-faced witches, constructed with the bones of the misfortunate, unburied sailors seduced by the song of the Sirens. Ulysses has further reason to fear these creatures. They swear obedience to Poseidon. And Poseidon is intent on putting an end to the odyssey of Ulysses and his companions. On the day they set sail, Circe has told Ulysses about the Sirens, these evil, merciless divinities. So as not to fall foul of their deceitful song, the enchantress told Ulysses to take on board wax with which to plug his and his crewmen's ears. That way, none of them would hear the irresistible song of the Sirens. Furthermore, his men should take to the oars and row like nothing can stop them. Eurylochus, faithful to the enchantress's instructions, orders the sails to be furled and that each man takes to an oar. Then Ulysses has the wax melted and hands it out to his men. But when his turn comes, he refuses to plug his ears. He wants to hear the song of the Sirens he's heard so much about. He wants to know what words and what tunes they use to make even the most impassive of mortals lose their minds. Eurylochus and Pylades and all the companions of Ulysses try to reason with him. Have you lost your mind? So many times his incurable curiosity has almost cost them their lives. But this time, he's going too far. But Ulysses has a plan, which he explains to his crew. They must tie him firmly to the mast of his ship. Then everyone else must plug their ears with the melted wax. If they see him begging them to untie him by reading his lips, then they should tighten the rope even more and ignore anything he orders them to do. The men dutifully obey him, and at that instant, the waves begin to sing out with an enchanting song. What Ulysses hears is heartbreaking. The sirens sing of the suffering experienced before the walls of Troy. The suffering endured in Ithaca by his wife Penelope and their son Telemachus, abandoned by a husband and father who has become a wanderer. The suffering of old Laertes, distraught over the absence of his son. The sirens promise Ulysses that if he joins them, they will return him to his loved ones and he will leave with new knowledge. Overcome by the song of the sirens, Ulysses begins to struggle. He tries to break free of his bonds and stares into their eyes as they flatter him and make their sweet promises. Ulysses beseeches his men, orders them, threatens them. But on deck, no one hears him. Just as he ordered, every sailor has plugged his ears and is rowing in rhythm, as deaf to the song of the sirens as they are to the pleas of their king. Eurylochus orders his men to tighten Ulysses' ropes until he bleeds if need be, while the oars strike the sea with more force than ever. Row as fast as possible, as swift as the hawk, Circe, the enchantress, had said. As they get further away from the rock of the sirens, their song grows fainter. Ulysses hears their last cries as they see their prey escaping. Then slowly, silence returns. But barely are they out of the sight of the sirens' rock, then mists cover the sea. Whirlpools form around the hulls, and once again the winds get up. Poseidon, furious that Ulysses has escaped from the sirens, provokes currents that sweep the fleet towards two tall masses of rock. The first is fatal to ships. The second, no vessel that has reached it has ever escaped. They are Scylla and Charybdis. These two monumental rocks are, in fact, terrifying monsters. Charybdis wasn't always a gigantic mass of clashing rocks, which smashes to smithereens any ship pushed close by the winds and currents. Long ago, Charybdis was a goddess. Charybdis was born of the love between Poseidon and his own mother, Gaia, the Earth. She was a young woman, neither prettier nor uglier than any other. But one day, for some unknown reason, she began devouring any living being that passed. Animals, children, men, women. Nothing or nobody found pity in her eyes. Zeus, exasperated by her sudden change in behavior, decided to punish her. He struck her with one of his thunderbolts and flung her into the sea, where she became what she is today, a hideous being, at one with the rocks, which sailors refer to as the Wandering Rocks. Three times a day, the wandering rocks of Charybdis drink in vast quantities of seawater, sucking in anything floating nearby, ships and marine life. Even birds avoid flying over the area. When strong currents threaten to drag their vessels onto the fearsome rocks, helmsmen try everything they can to divert their course. And if, by some miracle or great skill, they manage, they merely find themselves in the clutches of an even worse danger, one which they had failed to anticipate, that of Scylla. Scylla also lives on a rock, a stone's throw from Charybdis. She's invisible because she only springs from the sea when the ships pass within her reach. Terrifying and immense, she is so tall that she brushes the sky, causing gusts capable of capsizing even the best-built ships. Scylla is not only a rock, so smooth that no mortal can grip nor climb. She's also a monster whose path even the gods, including Poseidon, fear to cross. She has 12 deformed legs, 6 long necks and 6 heads, each with 3 rows of razor-sharp fangs. Once, Scylla, like Charybdis, was a woman. A nymph whose great beauty would be her downfall. One day she crossed the path of Glaucus. He was an ugly, deformed fisherman. But by some twist of fate, or perhaps on the permission of Poseidon, he had eaten a magical herb which had made him immortal. On seeing the lovely nymph, he fell head over heels in love. But Scylla rejected his advances. So Glaucus asked Circe, famous for her magical powers, to make him a love potion. Alas, Circe's heart beat ardently for Glaucus, and her jealousy made her commit an irremediable act. Instead of a love potion, Circe gave Glaucus a poison, and the poor soul, believing in a happy conclusion, poured the deadly brew into the fountain where Scylla regularly bathed. A victim of her rival, the nymph was turned into the abominable creature that still haunts the seas today. To the misfortune of Ulysses and his men, Scylla and Charybdis live facing each other, a mere arrow's flight apart. Before Charybdis, spewing out the ocean to seemingly suck ships back in, Eurylochus orders his crew to come about and sail right into the abyss. But Ulysses knows that Scylla will soon rise from the waters and smash them to pieces. Once again, Ulysses decides to follow Circe's advice. To avoid being shipwrecked, the trick is to sail right between the two dangers. The fleet must hold its line and sail straight on. The crew can't believe their eyes. Ulysses is surely suicidal. The ships sail straight at the Black Rock, the abode of Charybdis. The horrible creature can be seen greedily swallowing up seawater and spewing it back out at the fleet, before starting again, over and over. Ulysses' ships look like tiny boats made from walnut shells, about to be sucked in and crushed by the rock-featured monster.